Good evening, world, and welcome to another episode of A24 on the Rocks, your destination for discussions and in-depth reviews on every single movie in the A24 library, in chronological order. That's right, there are currently 142 movies in this impressive collection, and we are reviewing every single one of them. I'm your host, Kevin K. Konachek, and I am so happy that you have decided to join us tonight. Welcome, grab a drink, pull up a chair, and enjoy. Welcome, everyone, to our review of the 55th movie in our A24 completion journey. On this episode, we are going to review the 2017 psychological thriller film Woodshock, starring Kirsten Dunst, Joe Cole, and Pilu Asbeck. But before we get to the show, I need to introduce my co-hosts and co-hosts. Cohorts? Cohorts, yeah, that's what we're going to go with. Cohorts and co-hosts. Gentlemen, welcome. Tell the people who you are and what you are drinking.
Hey, I'm Eric, and I'm drinking a Jefferson's Ocean Aged at Sea Rye. Cole has raved about it so much that my wife Kelly, who is not here tonight because she wanted to take a one-film break from the A24 reviews, Cole raved about it so much she wanted to get this for me, and it is quite good. I enjoy it a ton. Cole, what are you drinking?
Kelly is a great gift giver. I am drinking Redbreast 12-year, going with a nice classic Irish whiskey, and I'm currently located in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm on spring break from Alaska, hanging out, and I am excited to talk about Kirsten Dunst's resurgence.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. That's what we're here for. And to round us out, much to nobody's surprise, I also have a glass of whiskey in my hand. That's right, we're 3 for 3 on whiskey tonight, which is pretty great. I'm drinking some Jack Daniel's Bonded Rye. It's smooth and delicious, 100 proof, and only like $35 off the shelf.
What makes it bonded?
Go get it. It's great. Bonded means that it was officially cured and created in a government bonded facility, means regulated by the state of Tennessee. When it was aged, so it follows all of the strict regulations.
Take all the fun out of it.
That state.
Well, Tennessee whiskey is made in a very certain way, right? Like Cole might know, but I just watched this YouTube video of a sommelier explaining like the difference between how they make bourbon and how you make Tennessee whiskey. I need to rewatch it because I don't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's all about the way it's built with the corn and the wheat and the mashes and all the different percentages and the barrels that it's aged in. Like bourbon has to be in white oak and a bunch of other.
Jack Daniel's is made with a spring-fed water from a cave, which is part of its secret.
Yeah. And it has to be super specific to be able to call Jack Daniel's and et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not drinking Old Number 7 because that shit just makes me want to fight. So we're drinking the rye instead, which is good because I don't really want to fight anybody right now.
A24 on the rocks.
But as Eric alluded to, unfortunately, Miss Kelly will not be joining us this evening. I do have it on good authority that she is busy saving the world. It's a tough job, but someone's got to do it, so we're going to have to soldier on. As a quick aside, though, before we get started, a warning to our listeners, this episode does contain references and discussions related to suicide. Let's dive right into it. As I mentioned in the opener, we are reviewing Woodshock. This piece is a psychological drama film and was released in 2017. Directed by Kate and Laura Molavy, the film is most known for its atmospheric and dreamlike quality, as well as its unique cinematic approach, while using double exposure and some other artistic choices by its directors. First things first, though, gentlemen, have either of you seen this movie before watching it for this episode?
No, I honestly hadn't even heard of it before.
Yeah,
it didn't cross your mind?
I'd only heard of it looking at this list a million times, and I saw Kirsten Dunst starred in it, so I'm like, wonder how this is going to be. And then I looked at the Rotten Tomatoes reviews, and I mean, I don't go fully by Rotten Tomatoes all the time, but it is poorly reviewed on Rotten Tomatoes, so it definitely started me out in a negative headspace.
Yeah. Cole, did you know this movie was going to be quote-unquote bad before you started it?
I didn't know it was going to be bad until, because, sometimes A24, you have a nice little, kind of hidden gem. But usually I Google to see where I can stream it from, and when you Google it, it immediately pulls up like IMDb, Rotten Tomato, and all the scores, and they were all not good. So I was interested to see what could possibly go on with this film. So
I think it's an interesting discussion to be had, though, because so many of these A24 movies, we've talked about how this trailer or reading or doing something ahead of time does change your perspective of the film. But when it's this negatively reviewed, 26% I think is the official score on Rotten Tomatoes, it certainly will affect your opinion regardless. So for me, Eric and I were talking ahead of time of this episode. We're like, we got to sneak up another movie in here real quick before we get to the Florida story. Florida Project. Anyway, we had to get this one in real quick because it was not as well reviewed, and it was like, we just got to make sure we get out of the way. I don't want us to skip it because you got to for the completion aspect, but yeah, to answer my own question, when I do know that a movie's going to be less than stellar starting out, I think my watching experience is not as great. So I probably should stop doing that. Should just watch it without anybody telling me anything about it.
I like to think I give every film a chance, but if it has less than 50% in Rotten Tomatoes, I do think I go in being like, okay, a lot of people hated this movie. So then I start to pick out okay, I could see why people would dislike this. Like that right there, that particular scene right there, that just either didn't make any sense or was poorly done. And then it just piles and piles and piles.
My opinion, whenever I see, usually if it's below 50%, it's hard to get below 50% unless it truly is special. And I think whenever I see something like that, like this film, I go into it trying to have an open mind, but my open mind time frame is very small. It's much smaller than most films that we watch, right? If it has a bad review, it has to come out hard or interesting or do something that kind of pulls me in. Leading into that, this movie did not do that.
And I think it's sometimes interesting when you think about an A24 movie because these are so artistic, right? They're sometimes so out of left field that what makes some of them really, really special is because they're so completely different. But then you have a film that almost tries too hard, like this one does, to be that artsy, fartsy indie film that was trying to be deeper than it really was. And I think that's what comes out on the other side. But I think I'm getting ahead of myself. But I think A24 does have that trap, I think, associated with it sometimes, is that a movie, it's okay to be weird because it's an A24 film.
You get definitely a lot more leeway being in the A24 catalog for pushing some weird boundaries or doing unique things that I think, have resulted in some very cool new spins in cinematography and sound design or set design or even storytelling. And I think that's what makes A24 special as a catalog. So you always got to give it, little credit where it's due, but not every film can be a winner.
Yeah, and it's not like none of us turned it off. We finished the film, so they got that going for it. But let's jump into it, right? So we got an opening. So the film opens in the midst of a giant redwood forest, and the voice of a faceless narrator is kind of telling a story about a child getting lost in the woods and almost being sorrowful about being discovered, and she doesn't want to leave the forest. These trees and the scenes are later referenced in the film, but I wanted to get your perspective on the setting of our opening scene. Cole, have you ever seen a redwood tree in person?
I have. I've been to California a few times, went to Merwood National Forest, which is beautiful. Redwood trees are, if you've never seen one, it's similar to we got a lot of moose in Alaska, and you have an idea of what a big deer is or a big tree is, right? But until you see one in person, you can't comprehend how big a tree could be until you see a redwood in person, because it's just this thing's bigger than my house. And by that I mean as wide as a house. It makes
So what did you think of the opening
sense.
scene then, as we kind of started out in that redwood forest?
Yeah, I think I thought I like the redwood forest. I think it's cool. I think you could get a lot of cool cinematography shots. I mean, Star Wars took excellent use of the redwood forest in the Endor moon battles with the Ewoks, but did this film use it very well? Again, it didn't pull me in. I mean, the whole narrator or what they were talking about didn't make a whole lot of coherent sense to me, or give me any real sense of the story or where we were going. And then the spoiler, the redwood trees don't really mean anything as far as I could tell in terms of anything. I don't know. It's just like it was like a pretty cool picture, and then
there was that deforestation angle.
Oh yeah, the deforestation. I really thought we were going to go somewhere with that, but
yeah, me too. Like we were getting a Fern Gully thing, but
there was a lot of things that this film seemed like was leading me where I was like, this could be a good story, and it did not do any of those, and instead just did something kind of boring. And its whole shtick was double exposure, which you mentioned earlier, where it's just like, let's just do some like pictures on pictures with transparency, man.
And it was in the first like 30 seconds of the film. We like immediately like treat like, okay, this is your artistic lobby. Let's see what happens.
This is what we're gonna do. It was 90 minutes.
All right, Eric.
I will give it that.
No kidding, right? It was 90 minutes. Eric, what did you think of the
hour
opening?
41, I thought. What did I think of the opening?
Yeah, hour 41. 11 minutes over.
It started out, and like I looked up, the genre this is in is a horror film, and so you immediately get the trees.
Makes no sense.
And horror drama, I don't know, but and then you see like the lady in the white gown walking away from the trees, and so I was like, okay, like are you gonna give me like a little bit of creepiness, a little bit of horror in here? And then it goes into this very, very somber next scene of her basically like euthanizing her mother. But yeah, like I would say, I guess overall commentary on the cinematography, it was surprisingly poor for the setting they were in. They were in Eureka, California, Pacific Northwest, which is a beautiful, beautiful like place to probably shoot a movie in. They did not give me enough wide angle shots, not enough tracking shots. They didn't give me, like the landscape shots that I would have wanted, or maybe I would have personally done if I was able to shoot in such a beautiful place. And it definitely made the film worse.
Yeah, let's talk about cinematography while we're at it. Seems like a great segue. Cole, what were your thoughts on, I know I already kind of asked you about the Redwoods specifically, but just kind of some of those things that Eric just touched on there with the artistic choices.
I felt like it was disjointed in the cinematography, in the choices that they made, because they went extremely artsy with the double exposure kind of flashes, some weird on-screen stuff. And I guess I understand why they did it due to like, the hallucination, the drugs and stuff that was used. But then it would just go to just really long, boring, just like tripod shots of let's put a camera up and you're going to go out there and you're going to pull posts out of the ground, or we're going to put a camera in the bathroom and you're just going to kind of sit there or walk somewhere. Like, I don't know. It felt weird in the way that the artistic nature of the cinematography didn't really tell much of a story, and was kind of felt like it didn't bridge between scenes. Like there wasn't a good transition between them. It just felt like they filmed a scene, thought it looked cool, and then they forgot they had to tell a story, so they go to another scene with dialogue, tell the story there, and then go back to do a cool, like, artsy, like, 30-second clip kind of thing. So that's
and they were going for surrealism in this film. Like, I even like read a review saying like it was trying to be Alice in Wonderland in reverse, but the cinematography was not good enough to create a surrealist aspect to this film, and it just felt like very much the like scenes of her flying and stuff like that. That's them going for surrealism. But the camera work, should have also been extremely surrealistic. Like we're reviewing Poor Things next week, and like that movie's a bit more on the nose. But even then, like you can tell, like the camera, they made conscious choices to depict certain things to make the audience feel a certain way, and this film did not do that with the camera.
Absolutely not. Eric, you kind of already mentioned it, but as the scenes progressed, we are then suddenly taken out of the forest and thrown into a scene where we get Kirsten Dunst helping her mother in an assisted suicide with some appears to be poison laced in some marijuana. There was a lot of really close-ups in that scene. It kind of felt me oddly uncomfortable, and maybe that's what they were going for, but it just seemed like there was a lot of silent moments and just kind of what we were already talking about, just an attempt at over-artistic impression that just didn't really fall for me. So what were your kind of impressions of that first scene after we start realizing kind of what's happening with her mom and kind of the the progression of that story? Were you surprised? Was it kind of a predictable progression? What were your thoughts there, Cole?
Well, my first thoughts was I did not realize this was assisted suicide, to be fair. I thought she was just lacing some marijuana with some LSD to give her mom like a good time and some pain-free to get a, essentially like an escapism type thing. Because I honestly thought that was what was going to happen. And then next thing I know, she opens the door and she's dead.
I don't know.
It was just like one of those scenes where I thought it was very touching. And like, I think Kirsten Dunst is a fine actress. Like, I don't think
Dunst.
Yes, Kirsten Dunst is a
Just
fine
call her
actress.
Kristen Dunn for the rest of the night. Just mess up both of the front and the last name.
And but yeah, I guess I didn't realize what was happening until the next scene. She's just walking in the house, opens the door, sees an empty bed, and then just immediately falls to the ground and starts like bawling. And I'm like, oh, okay, so she just killed her mom.
She just offed her mom.
Which, like, I understand. Like, I mean, I think it's a good conversation piece and could lead to a good story where it talks about what, if your family member or your, parent or sibling was in pain, there's nothing you can do about it, right? Their existence is not one that they are happy with. They don't want to continue on this, and you can give them that peace essentially through an assisted suicide. And then that obviously leads to the rest of the story. And I thought that's a very heavy and unique thing that I can't recall being in, I guess the main driver of a film. I mean, obviously there's like Grey's Anatomy type, stuff going on with that, but I thought that was unique, but it didn't go where I wished it went, I guess, with the rest of the film.
I guess for me, whenever I hear the words, it won't hurt, I always assume that it has to do with dying in some way or another. So I guess for me, my perspective was kind of like, oh.
I did think she was about to kill her, but yeah, like, she was rolling a joint, though. So I'm just like, what could you possibly put lace in weed that will kill somebody that won't hurt them? Because if it's poison, LSD, that you're gonna retch to death, basically.
And I think that actually did a disservice to the rest of the film for me, right? Because all it shows is just 2 drops and it kills this lady, and that throughout the rest of the film
they don't ever explain
and why Kirsten Dunst is able to smoke 5 joints unadulterated. And
also, why is she the only one with the poison, and why is she the poison lady?
Yeah, why makes her the death dealer? I don't understand.
Keith like gives it to her, maybe, because Keith is like a botanist of sorts. I mean, he grows weed and grows other things, right? But
I do feel like Keith is to blame for sure.
Yeah, well, I think Keith is growing whatever this thing that they're putting on the weed. He's growing it.
But why is she forcing her to do it?
I don't know. Like, can you explain? Like, or I'm not asking you. It's redundant, but like, can you explain like what exactly you could put on weed that would immediately kill somebody, or like just kill somebody, and they would feel no pain? Like I know this is supposed to be a surrealist film, but I do need the explanation for this.
Yeah, is it arsenic or something?
But arsenic, you would still retch to death, right?
Arsenic would be painful. But just like a little blowfish toxin or whatever, a little paralyzed.
Some super toxin from a fish or something.
Yeah, it gets
the way they euthanasia is a big part of this film. Like it's like a big subject, and it's actually an extremely interesting subject. Just fun fact, my mom wrote several stories about Jack Kevorkian in the 90s because she was a journalist for the Detroit Free Press.
Wow.
And that was, I just remember growing up, actually knowing what euthanasia was, like, when I was a little kid. Like, it was such a interesting, huge subject at that time. And they introduced it in this film, but it's just a plot device for our main character to, I don't know, explore her own grief, I guess.
I know it's a weird segue, but my euthanasia experience as a kid was from the religious side of telling you that it was wrong, that if you had grandparents, that they weren't allowed to, ask for death or anything, because God doesn't allow suicide, because that puts you in hell. I know that's a weird segue, but there you go. Anyway, I think we're getting off the rails a little bit, but this film certainly didn't do any helps in keeping us on the rails, so I'm going to blame that. Eric, we do get some quick jumps and flashes to the woods. I know you kind of mentioned it as surrealism, but I'm assuming that you didn't really appreciate this artistic touch. It was kind of more of a distracting measure by our directors to kind of try something that really wasn't there.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, we'll talk more about like maybe our theory about the whole film at the end. But like, it's just like we get random flashes of the woods and her, flying in the woods. I think there was a few flashes of that. Her climbing on top of a tree stump. This is, I guess, my more also general critique with our main character Theresa. Is that she has like no personality. There's no character development of her. I don't like. I get her mom died, but you when you're introducing me to a character in the film, you have to give them some personality, something for me to like root for them. There's nothing given in this film. She just seems like a wet blanket, blank slate of a human, and I have no reason to be like, oh, I feel so bad for you. Like, what's going on? Like with you. I just kind of like, okay, so she killed her mom. Now she's working at a weed shop and she's having all these crazy dreams. So like,
these crazy dreams. Cole, what do you think about our wet blanket of a main character?
The only thing I can think of is for some reason. So like other films have used. I get like. Why is she just like half naked all like 90% of the time? Like,
right?
There's no reason she needs to be in a nightgown for half of this.
Just her straight bra.
She's like
bra
nightgown,
and then part
bra,
of it she's just in a bra.
Or she'll be jeans and a bra, but then she'll go into the bathroom and be like in underwear, but then we'll be in the shower in underwear. It's like it makes no sense, and like it adds like nothing to it, but. She's like in like a weird depressive state, but every scene she's wearing like a new cute bra. And I'm like, I think if we're going to talk about someone being depressed, they're probably just wearing the same thing and they're going to be just like looking miserable and stuff. But they're just like, she's going to be wearing a black lace bra today. Tomorrow it'll be a white lace bra. And then she'll stand in the shower for a little bit. I was trying to figure out
nightdress on. And
and then have
it doesn't fit the character.
It doesn't make sense.
That's the point. I completely agree with. It's like I don't mind showing a woman like walking around the house in a bra, like that is realistic. But for this character, she's extremely depressed, and so I don't think it fits her character to be in a nightgown half the movie, like in a like nice lace nightgown, or even in a just like a kind of nice like black bra. Like it doesn't really make any sense.
No.
Well, and even you mentioned earlier about the lack of using your surroundings in a good setting and scenes. Like half of this film seems to be filmed just inside the house, just over in different rooms of the same house. Like when you have these beautiful natural picturesque places, maybe we just do a little bit more outside. But anyway, we were talking about characters, and we are going to get introduced to our other characters. We've got Theresa's boyfriend, Nick, played by Joe Cole, and he's a logger. That's right, he got a promotion to be a logger, and he's going to cut down the biggest tree ever and get questioned by Theresa on why they want to cut the trees down. And there's that. Then we get Keith, and he's a cannabis shop owner, which we find out later. They're kind of drinking in a bar, and Nick's celebrating a promotion, and Keith seems to be drunk and listening to the jukebox. I thought this scene was very intentional for a reason, and I don't really know why it was there. But Eric, why do you think the writer and director wanted to include that jukebox cutting off on Keith and him being like upset that the machine ate his money? Like I felt like it was very intentional, and I don't really know why.
I thought it was just kind of an introduction for us to show that this guy's kind of a drunk and he's an angry drunk, and he goes and kind of teases Nick, the boyfriend, like saying, your girlfriend asked me for some more some work like
some money or
after
whatever
work or whatever. I also I'm reading here like they were trying to make a comment about technology about according to Laura Malevy, as things get faster and faster with technology, we become more and more disconnected from our natural world. It's important to remind ourselves that these trees have been here for thousands of years. Maybe the jukebox cutting out could be a comment on technology failing us. That's a complete reach for me, but yeah, like I mean, that's what I also think. The one little bit of personality we get from Theresa is her asking her boyfriend, "Do you ever get sick of tearing it all down?" Like we were just saying, like maybe that was her trying to comment or. The filmmaker's trying to comment on...
Well, the thing that gets me is, according to these two...
tearing down the natural world.
The whole reason this film exists at all was because they were writing a story about the redwood forests. Like that was what their entire inspiration was. So the trees were kind of like the format for everything. And I couldn't tell either. Yeah. Exactly. So if that's what you were going for, a couple close-up of some logging machines going and your main character asking her boyfriend one time if he regrets cutting down a tree doesn't establish shit.
Yeah. And I think all I got from the jukebox cutting out, like, again, though, is Keith is a shady guy. I get, he's shady as hell. Him going over to Nick, teasing him, it's like, you can tell there's a past between Keith and Theresa. I think it's introducing those two characters and maybe trying to say, okay, there's a past here, but also these characters aren't developed much more after that. Right. So,
Cole, what were your first impressions of these two in this scene?
Well, I thought the scene was kind of just silly, where the guy goes to celebrate promotion, which is great, but the promotion is cutting down a bigger tree, right? Like that's not like a real promotion. That's not like an actual thing. No. At least as far as I'm
cut down a bigger tree. Congratulations.
And then the whole jukebox thing when he like kicks it and it starts again and stuff like that. I was like, okay, so there's like a weird Fonz reference, and this guy's a dick, and this other guy is just like, again, Nick was like a wet blanket as well. Like I feel like I didn't get much from him, and the only thing I got out of that when it shows like him being a logger and stuff was my thought. I had many thoughts about where I thought this movie was going to go. It didn't go to any of those places, and I thought a good story that they were going to tell was after she's like, do you ever feel bad about cutting it down and stuff like that? She had just killed her mom, who was in pain. I thought he was going to get in a terrible accident at the logging mill with the big tree that he got the promotion, crushing his like lower half of his torso or something.
And she would have had to give him.
She would have to
joint.
kill him, and basically like he would beg her to kill him.
So much better. You really should have wrote this
that's
movie.
That's where this is going to go, and it's going to go down like the big deep tirade of that whole emotion. Nah, never does that. Nick just like disappears for about 30 minutes of the film, comes back for about 2 minutes, disappears again. I don't quite understand how they even have a relationship.
I ain't cleaning up your shit and walks away.
Like, and I don't understand why Nick is even in this movie. Cool. Because he doesn't add anything.
The only thing I took away is that it seemed like this film's soundtrack was very like ambient and a lot of like weird noises in the background until it came to scenes that involved Keith, like that jukebox where he seemed to be having music playing around him when he was in the dispensary, or just his character had assigned music almost. And it was kind of like, why are we doing that? Is he more attuned to music because he's a weed dealer? I don't know. But I thought it was kind of out of place, and I wasn't really sure what they were going for there. But anyway, the film is progressing, and we start to see that Theresa has processed, or is trying to process, the fact that she just killed her mom, right? She's slowly returning to normal life activities, going back to work, and it turns out that Theresa works at the same dispensary that Keith does. And this is used as a plot vehicle for kind of the rest of the film. I took partial notes to some of the dialogue that was happening in some of these early scenes and how just god-awful it was. It didn't do a good job of setting up any of the characters' relationships to me, and I really think that it was cringy and half-baked in almost every aspect. But the dialogue especially just had moments where I was like, what are you talking about? Guys, did you have anything you wanted to toss in on the dialogue, for better or for worse, on some of these scenes and why it was probably written this way, or if there was any sensible reason as to why?
Really bad screenplay. There's, like we're saying with all the characters, they have no personality, and applying personality to your characters comes through the screenplay, and giving them like at least a little like some witty dialogue, maybe a sense of humor here or there, or in this case when you're exploring a more serious subject, like maybe have them making like some deep like philosophical points or something about what they're doing, like the euthanasia that they're doing, I guess. But we don't get much from that. We don't get personality from these people at all. Keith, he's a douche. That's his personality. That's the biggest personality we have in the film, and he's not enough of a villain like I think that they're trying to make him out to be to really like create a good central conflict in this film either.
Especially when we get to the fucking final scene, but that's not even where we're at yet, and I'll wait for that. Yeah, so that was kind of what we were talking about with that. So we are continuing this plot, and at this point, we're already kind of describing the whole movie, so you might as well keep going. There's not a whole lot to it, but we soon get introduced to an elderly gentleman named Ed, who comes into Keith and Teresa's dispensary. It's clear he's looking for the same help in committing suicide with poison, just as Teresa's mom. And we then get introduced to Johnny, and we get to go to Johnny's house and hear some more crappy dialogue as they're sitting on a party. And Keith encourages them to get their dick sucked or whatever the hell ended up happening. That whole scene, again, was terrible. Why are we introduced to Johnny? Doesn't matter outside of the twist that we get to shortly. Cole, what did you think of that whole scene and Johnny's party and just all of that nonsense?
I mean, that party seemed pretty lame. Not gonna lie, if I was at that party, I probably wouldn't call it a party. I'd probably more just call it like a gathering, and there's just one douchebag. Also, so here's, are they prostitutes or are they not? Like,
I don't know.
I was
I
like,
have no clue. He just says, "I've got two girls that want to suck her cocks." He just says it very loud, and
that's what I was like. I was trying to figure out if Keith was running like basically like a back alley prostitution, and that's where like our main character Theresa, like that's where she gets her extra cash from, was like working for him or something like that, and they're at a party and he's got other girls, and he's like but none of it really pans out. Nothing really gets explained, and the dialogue is all terrible. And Johnny is just a faceless, like, young kid that isn't a douchebag that, you know, gets killed, and we're supposed to feel bad about it, right?
Face of innocence. There it is.
He's there for the plot twist to send Theresa down a downward spiral to start doing more hallucinogens. And
let's talk about the plot twist. Oh my gosh! So
was it really?
It was a twist. It was a twist, right?
I would say it was pretty like on point of like, yeah, that's definitely gonna happen, and then it happens. And my favorite part about this movie is Teresa's reaction when Ed comes back and it's like, it didn't work, and she's just like, man, that's so weird. And then
what? I didn't do that.
Doesn't even think about how Johnny was there at the exact same time, how she gave two people 2 jars at the exact same. Literally nothing, no emotion, just like, that's so weird. Goes to sleep, and then when they like tell her that he died, she's just like, how?
Right, it's like, oh my god! Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you.
You know what? Kirsten Dunst is a good actress too.
Yeah.
Like that's what pains me too. Like I've seen her in so many good films,
and it's rumored that she prepared for a year for this role. Like she was an executive producer on this project, childhood friends with the 2 directors, and prepared for this for an entire year.
Friends with them? Wow.
She said that she knew him since she was 20 or whatever.
Why did this happen?
Yeah, no, that's exactly why it happened in the first place, though. That's exactly why.
All I know about the directors is that they started a fashion line called Rodarte in 2005, and then they did some costuming for Black Swan, which is an amazing film.
And starring, not Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah, well, and then, Kirsten Dunst was executive producer, so she was probably Black like, Swan? All right. No, on this film.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm guessing she was just like, all right, I'll greenlight a movie for you, and they had no prior experience to making films, it seems like.
Which is very obvious.
Yeah.
Very obvious. All right, let's see. So Ed and the confusion about Ed, and he's dead. No, Ed didn't die. Johnny died. That's right. Johnny. As the story progresses, it's revealed, just like we said, that, guess what? Johnny got accidentally killed, and someone feels guilty about it. Now, I did find this kind of interesting. So this kind of happens right at the halfway mark of the film. Like, directly halfway through, she finds out that this has happened. And it kind of changes Theresa, right? At this point, it's now all about her journey into craziness and to her grief and denial and drug use. Was this effective? I mean, was this even a small positive? I mean, we've kind of been writing this down at this point. I guess for me, it was a division in the film, so it kind of made a little bit more sense from that perspective, but it overall still wasn't overly effective. Guys, any thoughts on the pacing or the way that they put this up from a timeline perspective?
I think the pacing was bad because it like that twist, I felt like you said, happened right in the middle of the film. That should have happened right before, like right at the peak, like towards the back half, like the where you're getting close to like the crescendo. Or if you're a good director or have like a really strong screenplay, it's in like the front or like the middle where like the big crescendo or the big like part of the film happens at an unspecified time that you're not used to, and then a very unique story trails on from there where it gets even more crazy and something else happens. That didn't happen in this film. It happened right in the middle. That was the big reveal, and the big reveal was not that big. Like I said, Theresa, her reaction was just like, how did this happen? And the guy, Keith, is literally telling her how it happened, and she's just like, no, there's like just no way it couldn't have happened. There's
One more time. How did it happen?
Yeah, no way. And then it felt weird, and I just didn't think the pacing just didn't make sense. Also, this film, like when that happened, I like just before that I had like looked at the timeline, and when you're watching a movie and you click to see how much longer it is, it's never a good sign.
Never a good
and
sign.
I did that 30 minutes into this film, and this film is barely over an hour and a half. So like I was 30 minutes in, and I was already like, how far along are we? And I was like, good Lord, I got an hour.
Shit.
It was at the hour and 4 minute mark when she finally puts down those 4 joints, and then she decides to like put the hallucinogenic stuff on it. But so right, it's
Where's
killing
her
other
grinder?
people, but she can smoke it, right? Yeah, where's the grinder? But like it's an hour 4 minutes when she finally
Asking the
starts
important
like
questions, Cole.
going into the woods, hallucinating, doing crazy stuff like putting up fence posts, like in her nightgown. Why is that a thing that you do when
so,
you hallucinate?
Eric,
But,
do you
was
think
the
she was trying to
meaning?
kill herself? Do you think that's what she was doing?
Well,
no, I don't think so. I think she was well.
'Cause, I mean, if she puts poison in all 5 joints, I mean, that kind of seems like a I'm gonna kill myself thing.
But she keeps waking up and like doing it again, so I think she
Because
knows
she
how much
doesn't
she's putting
die.
in.
well,
I think
maybe.
she knows how much she's putting in, and she's not killing herself. I think she wants to hallucinate.
and she's
then-
never made
yeah.
like more than one joint, or like for anyone else that's died, right? So she makes multiple. So does she think that
Yeah.
like why would you make multiple instead of just dumping it all into one joint, right? If you want to kill yourself, just put
It
it
was
all
so
into one
intentional.
joint.
Like, what the fuck was that? Because you wanted the visual of 5 joints on the floor? Like, congratulations, you got a shot.
I felt like the allure of the hallucinations was why she kept doing it. Not because she just wanted to kill herself, but like, there's not enough explanation of this thing that she's putting on the joints that is she's also using to euthanize other people. There's not enough explanation.
Right,
of
she's
that.
using it as
why
an
it
escape, but it also kills people? Like, what the fuck is this
Which
thing?
is why it would have made sense that she did LSD at the beginning and with her mom to give her mom escape from the pain, and then if you take it with this scene, she's trying to escape from the pain of like, all this depression and stuff, but instead she just kills her mom, but now it's LSD or something, and she's going on trips and building fences for no goddamn reason. I don't know.
So we're all in agreement that these trips were not really effective from a cinematic standpoint, right? They really didn't do anything to really show us that she was doing other than showing her feet leave the ground, maybe a little bit, and at the end they tried to have like a witch moment where she ascends into the sky, but that clearly
Look at what you
wasn't
did.
even
Look
good.
at what you did out there. I'm not cleaning it up for you.
Right, it was such a shit scene. The dialogue was terrible. The acting was bad, and all of a sudden we get this
Why
final
is that his response?
end. Yeah, right, exactly. I ain't cleaning this up for you.
Why,
I'm gonna go cut
I
some
feel
trees
like
down.
if the person I love or care about fucking in the middle of the night tears out a bunch of boards and starts putting them in the ground and stuff like that, I'd be like, oh, there's something wrong. Like, we need to address this. Instead, he's just like, can't believe you made a mess. Like, you didn't do the dishes or something. Like, come on, if you're gonna, cook a bunch of pasta, don't leave it sitting in there for a week at the sink, okay?
Yeah.
This actor, the boyfriend, his name's Joe Cole. He was in Green Room. He was Reese. He's been in Black Mirror, and he was also in Peaky Blinders. He was John Shelby in Peaky Blinders.
Yep.
So really good actor. Kind of wasted on this film.
They didn't
with,
give him
a character
anything.
with very few lines,
Especially
and
for a film that was
not
supposed
much
to be about the
personality.
forest and being like the logger, you would think he would
Yeah.
have something more to him, but terrible. So anyway, this fight that we're referencing basically happens where Theresa hallucinates pounding a bunch of posts into the ground and then breaks them. Boyfriend's not happy. Anyway, they get in a fight, and Theresa keeps smoking more poison joints. Eventually gets sick, and goes hangs out with Keith. And Keith's kind of like, hey, what's going on? You probably are feeling a little guilty about killing your mom, right? And she's like, no, I wouldn't do that. And then completely out of effing nowhere, she starts burning herself with an iron, stabbing herself with a knife. Then Keith tries to stop her, and she murders Keith in cold blood by bludgeoning him to death with the iron. Like, what the fuck? This scene was absolutely out of fucking nowhere. For the rest of this film that was already bad, then to do something like this was insane. I mean, I'm literally like jaw dropped on the floor. Like, what am I watching as she's slowly beating this man to death with a fucking hot iron? Like, why? Someone tell me why, please.
Okay, so, theory about the whole film, I think this was all a dream. I think she did euthanize her mother, and then the ending is like this kind of montage, like, okay, kills her, or she kills Keith, montage of like the woods and like all this shit she did the whole film, and then it's like a close-up of her eyes waking up. And so I feel like this whole film was just a dream after she killed her mother, and the dream was like exploring her grief, and it was supposed to be surrealist, like I said, but like it puts you too much in reality to give me that feeling. And it's I don't know, man, it was not well done.
So you're referencing overarching themes as if there's some sort of like bigger, deeper meaning to this whole thing. Cole,
grief.
Do we have a theme? Do we have a reason? Give me your big-brained explanation.
I will say my big, grandiose thing is this film, I think, was one of the few films that made me feel bad for, like, the guy that was set up to be the absolute, like, asshole dipshit, and he just gets, like, murked by her for really just trying to essentially be a almost kind of a friend. Like, he almost turns a corner, is like trying to help her, and she just fucking kills him. And it's like, man, like, that guy sucked, but murder, that's kind of that pretty bad there. Like, there's no neat reason for that. But yeah, the overarching story is, I guess, like a weird roundabout way about grief, and you know how the earth is grieving because of all the deforestation that we're doing. But I mean, the only reason I knew that, or I guess came to that conclusion, was because Eric told me that they made this about trees. Like, if he didn't say that, I would just say this is just a very poorly done film about grief and, you know, assisted suicide, but it doesn't explore any of the interesting or like thought-provoking aspects of it, and is just a cheap version. Like,
some people say this film deals with the themes of grief and the fragility of the human mind. Like, yeah, okay. Or like why the use of mind-altering substances are a central element to the story. Like, where the fuck does that come into play? I thought this drug killed people, not made you trip through the woods. Like, fucking figure it out.
I think a good way, a way that this film could have been good is if they just went full surrealist and kind of put her on an odyssey through the Redwood Forest. I think of a film called Dead Man by Jim Jarmusch, which I saw a few years ago. And that's like, it's Johnny Depp, Iggy Pop's in it, like there's a lot of cool actors in it. A lot of the film is very surrealist, but him journeying through like the West and, you know, the woods, and through, you know, just doing this awesome journey through nature. And I feel like if they just went full surrealist, full acid trip in this, then it could have been a lot better, and it would have forgiven maybe some of the lack of personality and character development that our main character has. But they didn't do that. They grounded us in the dispensary scenes and the party scenes, and they grounded us way too much for it to be a true surrealist film.
Yeah, absolutely. Cole, what do you think?
I was going to say, like, a better version of this film is Mandy with Nick Cage, where
Mandy's great.
Like, it's super surrealism, like super just like techno druggy, like wood fueled, like mindfuck. But it's such a good movie, and it's also about essentially grief, right? And his like that whole thing, but way better in every aspect, and it's got Nick Cage, so. Go watch that movie. What
Voice of a generation. So that's all I need to know. Guys, is there really anything else we need to talk about this film? I mean,
and I was going to mention, you know, this film had a $5 million budget and made $43,000, $43,682. So it premiered at the Venice Film Festival, and it also screened at Cannes. Oh no, it screened at Cannes. and A24 bought the rights to it back in 2015 when they were a much smaller film company.
It really does feel like a
distribution
personal
company.
favor to Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah.
And
then
hey.
had its world premiere at the Venice Film Festival. Then it received a limited release on September 22nd, 2017. So you can kind of see they probably bought the rights to it, and they're like, they were just like, fuck, we actually have to put this film out after they won Best Picture for Moonlight.
Right.
And then they're just like, all right, and this is definitely the worst film I think we've watched this year, in my opinion.
Definitely.
In the 2017 year of A24, because at least I think.
If not,
Yeah,
like,
we've gotten like to
close.
points where, or to a point in all the films they're releasing, they have like at least a grade of C for me. Like
Yeah, they
I
have
feel
a
like
level-
I
a
haven't
certain
graded
level.
something below a C minus this year. Yeah. And
Let's
this
see,
film,
2017, you said it starts?
Yeah.
I didn't like Black Coat's Daughter that much, but that wasn't terrible.
that at
Yeah,
least
I
had
like
some,
that, so that was
you know,
good.
good
That's-
stuff
I think
going
we're each
for
different.
it, right?
Yeah.
Do you think Free Fire fits into that category of not great
You
reviews?
like Free Fire.
Well,
I
I'm saying, so we talked earlier in the beginning about films that are not widely reviewed well, but sometimes they are good films. And like
Yes.
Free
Free
Fire
Fire
came up to
still had-
me. Is it well reviewed?
Yeah, it still had
It's-
a 70% Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that wasn't
it's just-
close.
it's just-
I mean,
so,
we
okay,
all love
the-
that
So
movie. That thing was
Unknown
fucking
film, I
sick.
think, is more of what Free
The
Fire
Lovers
is.
and Trespass Against Us might be the other two this year that were not
Lovers
we didn't
was
like
bad.
as much. But
Lovers was
Yeah, Lovers wasn't great.
this was worse.
This was definitely
no
worse.
doubt.
No doubt. This was definitely
Yeah.
worse. Not
This
even
was like
a little
amateur
bit.
filmmaking, and it reminds me of some of the earlier films we watched, like Barely Lethal
Yeah.
or even Revenge of the
Eric,
Green Dragons.
You briefly mentioned it earlier, but like these two, all they had was a history in fashion, and then they
Yeah.
wrote a screenplay because they felt like it, and then they knew an actress in Hollywood, and they're like, "Hey, you can make a film," and here's what we get. Not good.
Yep, and pays to have rich friends, I guess.
It really
but,
does. It
yeah.
really does pay to have rich friends. I
Yeah.
mean, honestly.
I've been looking.
Have,
if you're
have
listening,
they done
and
anything
you want a
since
friend.
this? Let's look it up. Have they done anything since then?
No, I don't
no.
think so.
No.
Yeah.
So
They
really,
could.
because they co-designed costumes for Black Swan, and Black Swan was good,
And they're friends
they got
with her.
to do whatever they wanted to after that.
And they're friends with Kirsten Dunst.
And they're friends with Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I think this means we need to review this, like officially put our grades on it, because I ain't got no more questions for you, and we're just spinning our wheels on how not so fantastic this was. So who wants to go first? Anybody? Anybody?
I guess I can go first.
Okay.
All right.
You're up, Eric. Give us your review.
Well, I've said before that there was very little to no character development in this film, and there are good actors in here. They were just, given a horrible script. This might have been some of the worst screenwriting in an A24 film that I have seen so far. And the whole, idea of this film, exploring things like euthanasia and just kind of nature being torn down and replaced with technology, it could have been good. Like, if the subjects are there to explore, but they just did that. They explored it so poorly and underserved those subjects so poorly that it makes the film, even more of a insult, I would say, that it was released. And I feel bad because I know that, two people probably did put a ton of time into writing and making this film, and they got $5 million to kind of, they end up just pissing it away. So I feel bad that happened, that this even happened in the film world, but I'm sorry that I just have to give it an F, and there's not much more to say. The themes were just so underserved, and the cinematography was so bad, and there was no space for the actors to work, and it was definitely just a waste of a film.
All right, then. I'm going to jump in right after this. In my opener, I listed off the fact that there are 142 current A24 films. Out of those 142, there's bound to be some bad ones. Not everything's going to be good. Sorry, folks. You probably know this already if you're following on our journey. So this one, not great. We couldn't really hide it from the very opening all the way through to where we are right now. Every kind of inclining of this podcast has been towards the negative on this film, and there's really not much that can do to redeem it. We've tried. We've honestly tried to look up and down, and there really isn't a whole lot to it. Performances, not fantastic. Again, not their fault, just they weren't given anything. Writing, awful. Dialogue, terrible. Stylistic choices were all over the board. Maybe if they would have committed to one versus several of the other ones, they would have had something, even with such a beautiful scenery as the Pacific Northwest. They just didn't do it. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. This film, you were probably listening to this podcast because you're on this A24 journey. Congratulations, you finished it. Now get ready for the next one. It's not really worth giving too much time or effort to. Even with the themes as convoluted as they are, it doesn't give you much to hold on to. Each scene is forgettable. Each scene does not connect well with each other. These random flashbacks and artistic shots and drug trips, while intentional, probably because it's supposed to be some sort of representation of a lucid dream or of some sort of psychosis or LSD trip or poison weed, whatever you want to call it, it just doesn't come across as anything other than a slog and an exhaustive attempt at cinema. So I don't think I'll recommend it for anyone to watch. I feel like if you are watching this, you probably have to, not because you really want to see any of it, which is unfortunate. But it is probably okay that every once in a while we get some of these films in the A24 library because it allows us to give a critical eye to an otherwise a beautiful production company, which we have come to love and why we do this podcast at all. So every once in a while, you're probably going to get a turd in there. So, like Eric, it's getting an F, but I'm going to give it an F+ just for the sake of, being a little different. So we don't have the same exact grade, but it pretty much represents the same thing. Terrible, not so good, fail. Cole, bring us home.
Yeah. I didn't like this movie either, guys.
What?
Yeah. This movie was boring. It was lame. It was like did weird artsy stuff to like again it reminds me of what you would see at like a film school or like even like a community college film school where they're like a person is just wants to be like way too artsy and then they show you the film and you're like this sucks and they're like you just don't get it. Well, yeah, we don't get it. Like none of this makes sense. It was incoherent. The dialogue was boring and drab and like so forgetful, and you had $5 million and like some good actors to be a part of this film, and you made something just so almost like depressing in how I don't know. I don't want to be like super negative, but at the same token, I mean, there's a reason why they never made another film, right? Like, I don't think that's their forte. I think, everyone has their thing, and like, I don't think I would ever necessarily be a great director either. But I'm not.
But you can do
$5 million to do it, and man, this was hard. This was definitely one of the harder films to like sit through, and when we do these,
might have been the most
reviews,
boring film we've watched.
Yes,
more boring than the Revenge of the Green Dragons or Barely Lethal.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, those were really cringy and bad, but at least there was something they were trying to do to keep you entertained. This was just slow and plodding and boring and nothing at all.
Yeah, it just
pulled your attention until the very last scene where they're bludgeoning someone to death with a fucking iron, which totally out of nowhere.
No, it was a struggle. I mean, like this was by far the hardest film where I just was counting down the seconds. And when we're doing this podcast, I try and, I want to give it my full attention. So I'm trying not to be on my phone. I'm trying not to, multitask. I want to give it a fair shot. But man, was this one.
But you knew so early in this film that it wasn't going to be good.
So.
Right?
Yeah.
You knew right away.
So bad. So, I mean, it's an F24. There's not much else we can say about it. This is one that you should not watch unless you're, maniacs like us and want to get into it. I guess this is the cross we bear, so to speak. We get to see a lot of really amazing films that I would have never watched or like even known about. But when you dive into stuff like that, you're gonna find the bad ones, and you're just gonna have to work your way through it. Thankfully, listeners, you don't have to do it necessarily. You could move on. Hopefully there's not many more of these.
Question, so, like, what timeline do we think this was in? Because there was landlines everywhere.
No idea. No idea. I don't even know how
Like,
long
if it's supposed to be a modern-day film, they would have had cell phones, right?
I would think. But also, how long did this movie, like, what period of time
When
was
did
this,
weed become recreational in California?
I don't know, ever? Forever? No.
No, like late 90s, early 2000s, right?
No, later.
Yeah,
later than that.
I was going to say, like,
it was medical.
late
Anyway, that's what they were going for. In my opinion,
Yeah.
it was probably right when California had decriminalized.
2016 was when it was legalized. So they had a dispensary. There was a legal dispensary in town, so it had to have been 2016 or 17.
Yep, there you go, and that's what they were
Yeah,
going
medical
for.
marijuana probably happened a little bit before that. But
So the landline thing was stupid, just like everything else.
there was no reason they had landlines, and then there was like Keith was like, people were wearing flannels, right? But I felt like Johnny was wearing a very 70s get-up, and there was some, like, 70s costuming in this film. So it felt like it was trying to be in another time, and maybe that would have been a comment on, like, technology destroying nature or whatever.
And killing the jukebox.
But, like, then they had a legal weed dispensary, which means it would have been in modern times. So it doesn't make any sense that they had landlines everywhere, too.
Especially since he slept right next to the phone, so she could call immediately. How convenient. Dumb. All right. Cole, I'm sorry to interrupt your review earlier. I feel like this movie's just to the point where we're kind of
F24, man. I'm done. I'm over this.
All right.
I'm ready to
Guys,
watch
if you made it this
something
far,
better.
thank you. Please rate and review, subscribe, comment on why you think this film is good, but probably not. Probably going to comment on how it's bad. Thanks for sticking around, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Like, what the fuck?